Welcome back to the Make Arma Not War 2025 podcast. In this episode, executive producer Natasha Agafonova, project lead Krzysztof Bielavsky, aka Klamacz, and senior narrative writer Josh Hood sit down with special guest Dr. Rachel Kowert, a research psychologist, to explore how video games influence social interaction and highlight the positive impact of games like Armor Forger. We hope you enjoy.
I'm very excited, and I'm glad we got everything worked out. And I've been really excited about this episode since we kind of talked about it for a while. And perhaps we'll start with allowing one of our esteemed guests, Rachel, to introduce herself and then move around the virtual table.
Sure, thank you. Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Rachel Kowert. I'm a research psychologist. I have been studying the uses and effects of games for 15 years. And I like to call myself a gamer, but I have a lot of little kids, so I don't play too many games these days.
And Klamacz, also known as Mr. Arma, sorry.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm Klamacz. I'm a project lead of Arma Forger, at least the current one, and I hope to bring a perspective of how we design games with intention, or how we find the meaning in them, making them. So it's a very interesting topic, and I hope to learn a lot as well.
Last but certainly not least, Natasha, who keeps us all in line.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm executive producer of Arma franchise, and I'm here to talk about something that I'm personally very passionate about, but don't have a lot of theoretical knowledge of, and that's community and how to create a better community. So I'm very looking forward to learn from you guys and your experiences, and ask a lot of questions if you will allow me. And Joshua, if you could introduce yourself as well, that would be wonderful.
My name's Josh Hood. I'm a writer at currently with Bohemia, working on Armor Forger and Arma 4, and I'm a veteran. And kind of what got me into the whole video games as being much more than video games was a gameplay session that I had with my brother right before I came to work here, who's also a veteran, and he had been diagnosed with brain cancer after Iraq, and that and dealing with other stuff, family, we really stopped talking. And then during this play session, it was suddenly the last couple years where we hadn't really had our community. These walls that had just built up just evaporated. And for me, it was one of those moments driving home. I was like, what just happened? But it's obviously something. And so it led me down this road to reach out to Rachel, reach out to Dr. Michelle Calder, um, because there is a lot of research about this and not a lot of people talk about it. And the majority of people who talk about video games, as we were talking earlier, um, they don't know what they're talking about. They're misquoting evidence, science, or they're just making things up. And Rachel was telling us, that there is lots and lots of data out there that is accessible. And what does it tell us about the use and effect of video games from the 40,000-foot level?
The 40,000 foot level, the soundbite I usually give is that if you look at the research and what we've studied over the last 50 years, the effects of playing games are more positive than negative. So we see a sense of community, we see increased belonging, we see reduced loneliness, all of those things that don't usually make the headlines.
Which is the exact opposite of what I would imagine most people probably think. And
Sure.
which leads to my next question, is one we hit on off screen, and my brain keeps coming back to it. Like, what is community? Do we have a definition of that? I mean, I know Klamacz and Natasha, when you think community, what do you think within the gaming world?
And Natasha has a definition, I think.
Oh yeah, she promised to tell us this. That's
She's
what I
still
was-
looking for one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I think the definition of community in practical sense is really easy, right? Because a community is a conglomeration of our players who come together to enjoy the game. Because Armor Forger is majorly a multiplayer experience. So community are the people who organize themselves to play the sessions together. And also we have a modding community, which is why we're making this podcast, right? For the modding community, who are the people who create something for other people to enjoy. Um, but if I would have to define like what is the emotional definition of a community, camaraderie, a sense of belonging, um, something that allows people to push past their loneliness. That's what I would say, but I don't have any scientific definition. Do you have something more, maybe, Klamacz? How did you experience community in your years of Arma?
I would say it's wider than just players and modders. It's all the different kind of people: video makers, screenshot makers, the people which create IT systems to support those communities, to who host the servers, who build the backend, or organize the events, talk to people, recruiters. There is like it's very very wide. What connects them is that they like the game, right? So there is some connecting point, something which brings them together to the same playfield, and that's how they, it's Arma, it's the sandbox, it's all those features, it's all those possibilities. Very creative area, so it's also very inviting, right? And then inside, yes, you have the multiplayer aspects where you have players of different kinds interacting, sometimes hearing different languages and having to cope with really like a social situations, trying to organize themselves in this challenge, right? Because they're thrown into virtual combat. Um, and also those which but like multiplayer is just a part of it, right? It invokes the rest of the community, it builds different branches of it, but it's very wide. I think there is just a connecting line. It's the game itself. If it wouldn't be that game, it would be another game, right? Like they would just join the other community, those people.
Does it ring any bell for you, Rachel, as a person who studies community professionally? Does it make any sense?
No, it does. It does. I think it really is about like there's a rallying point, right? And this point is Arma is the rallying point which the communities rally around. And also, like you were saying, there's different levels, right? There's like the individual guilds. There's Josh playing with his brother, but then there's like a wider guild, and then there's the whole community, and then it's like the community who made the community, and then it's like the modding community. So there's a lot of different subsections, but all of it has that same through line. And yeah, I think what you said, camaraderie, belonging, reduce loneliness, sense of affinity, all of these things are used to describe, like the effects of the community, which I think are really important, especially because a lot of times when we talk about the impact of games, people think that the impacts are somehow magically contained within the walls of the game. But as Josh led with his example and what we're saying here, like those effects expand, like the reduced sense of loneliness I feel playing games with people I've never met, that translates into all areas of my life and the way I walk through the world. Like it's not just something that only exists there.
But what happens is actually in the gaming world that creates this psychological safety? Because in general, people are saying that that the world is becoming more lonely, and we are struggling to connect with each other more and more. What is the aspect of the gaming community? Even though, like for example, we are making an authentic military simulator. It's not a peaceful game. It's pretty stressful, especially for beginners. But there is something that allows people to do it. What do you think it could be in different games, not only in Arma, but like in general?
Generally speaking, games exactly are different. So that piece that the Surgeon General put out about the loneliness epidemic, my reaction to it has always been like, why didn't he talk about games? Because if you look at the research in games, people report feeling less lonely, and a reduction in a sense of loneliness is not just from being around other people. It's about feeling seen by these people. Because you know that phrase, like be in a room full of people and you still feel alone. Like it's not just about being in a massively multiplayer populated space. It's about being in a space in which you feel that sense of belonging and in which you feel that sense of camaraderie. Why it happens in games, there's some research that came out of Stanford a long time ago that talked about how friendships in games are emotionally jump-started. So traditionally, when you meet someone face to face, you slowly get to know them over time and you slowly learn if you can trust them over time. But in games, you're throwing them into high pressure, stressful situations. I learned immediately if I can trust you. Are you going to help me? I play fantasy games. Are you going to help me kill that dragon? Okay. If you help me kill that dragon, I like you. If you are standing in the fire of that dragon, I immediately dislike you. I know nothing about you, but that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to get to know you. And that emotional jump starting leads to higher rates of sharing personal information and feeling close at a faster rate. It leads to friendships being reported as long lasting and really close, whereas friendships traditionally made on the internet tend to be like loose and diffuse and short lived and kind of transient. And so, like, all of these little unique things about games make the friendships totally different than the friendships that we see form in places that are not gaming spaces.
Almost sounds like a trauma bond.
Yes, that actually is an interesting reframe. Right. Right. A trauma bond in the safety of a simulation. And also you would ask Natasha, like, why where's that psychological safety? It also comes from this thing, it's called the online disinhibition effect. It's that you can't see me and you don't know me. So if you can't see me and you don't know me, I can say a lot of things and then I can see how you hold that or how you don't. It's a lot safer for me to say something and you're like, I hate you, you suck, and I can just mute you and block you. I don't know you. You're not going to tell people at school. You don't know anybody. Um, versus, oh, actually, they held that information and now I feel safe and now I feel close. And that risk is significantly less.
Which kind of earlier we talked about the why it works. And so you're kind of explaining that, which is interesting because I wondered if like the increased loneliness or isolation, I guess, is because we're so connected now, but more connected now than ever. But in that connection, everybody's really just there for themselves. Like you look at social media and it's like they're trying to promote themselves, promote their books. And it's like you're in an entire room that's not listening, it's just waiting for its chance to talk, if that makes sense.
And I think that's another way that games are different, right? Because right, on social media, it's about broadcasting, whereas in games, it's not. It's about community. It's about
Right.
engaging in a shared task. Yeah.
Working together, which requires relationships.
And do you feel like community is affected by wine, like but what age group in particular, or there is no big change?
I haven't seen any research that suggests there's like one age group where it's like magical and not. The only thing I've ever seen about age is that games provide a really unique opportunity for different ages to interact, which isn't, very common. Like a 18-year-old could be leading a group of 50-year-olds. Like, when does that get to happen in a non-gaming space? Very unlikely. So those are the only kind of things I've seen in terms of like uniqueness and the magic. That's the little magic component that games bring.
Does it relate to it, Klamacz? Do you feel like we have that in our game?
This happened to me, yes. Being led by 14-year-old, which has a, or maybe 18, I don't know what's our age rating in his country or region. But yeah, this happens. And it's even funnier when he's actually good at it.
Right.
Because then people naturally follow him because it makes sense. They may make fun of his voice or like this your mom cooking at dinner. There is always a bit of unfiltered toxicity in those scenarios, right? Those situations when you talk with random people. But I think in the end, because it's safe environment and you can always turn it off, uh, he gets a skill in leadership, which is actually something very, very useful in life, and a bit more thinner skin maybe for the future when he meets such people in real life and they are not really nice, and he still is able to kind of make make amends with them and make them do what he wants, lead them through the situation. Games actually, leadership in games is a fascinating topic because it makes you have to convince people to do things. You cannot force them. You don't pay them. You are not really their officer on field. If they don't want to do what you want, they can simply leave. They can, find a better game to play. So to be a leader in the game, a squad leader, for example, you have to have a skill of motivating people positively so they want to follow you. And that skill translates later in life beautifully, in my opinion.
For sure.
How does it work, Josh, with your experience? Like the experience of leadership because you have experience of real combat, and how does it translate into the game, and how does it translate to your emotions as a veteran, if at all?
I think that's interesting. Something I've actually been thinking a lot about. So a friend of mine sent me a video today of us on an operation in Iraq back in 2006, 2005, 2006. And it just hit me today that that was 19 years ago. I'm like, it feels like yesterday, but that's like 19 years ago. And thinking back from then to now, I realize, and I can say that I was not a good leader then because I didn't know really what leadership was. In the military, leadership isn't taught as people think. It's just like yelling and you do what I do. Like you're not really treating a person nicely. You're just trying to keep them alive. And so I was a good leader in that I kept all my men alive, but I wasn't maybe a mentor. And so the first thing I noticed upon playing Arma is like you can't yell at people and just be like, because we've done couple of veterans play sessions, and everybody commented on how the realism is such that you slip back into that time. But one thing I noticed is like playing Arma, like if you're playing with veterans and you call someone like a motherfucker, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I understand that language." But if you go into the general population and you say that to somebody, all of a sudden they're trying to boot you, and so for me, it was very eye opening into maybe what the army could have done better to teach leadership. And it's kind of what Klamacz was saying is like, do you really want in the army, in the military, you have rank and you have to follow rank or you'll get in trouble. But that doesn't mean you actually want to do that. That doesn't mean like people talk about, oh, I would die for this guy or whatever. But thinking back on it, I'm like, I bet there were a lot of privates that I had that wouldn't have wanted to die for me, and in fact, might have helped me along if they could have gotten away with it. And Columbus, you say that it's kind of an eye opening thing about like what is leadership really?
Mhm.
I think this kind of also interestingly segues into the idea of toxicity, right? Because he was saying that if you are gonna call people names, they're gonna boon you from the server potentially. How does toxicity affect the communities, Rachel?
Big question. I guess the like soundbite answer would be it depends on the community, and I think actually the example Josh gave was really good. People set cultural norms in their own communities. So how I would engage with other people or what I would expect to encounter playing Arma is going to be very different than what I would expect to encounter when I'm playing Mario or something else. Um, Generally speaking, if there's a mismatch, if my expectation is something and I'm receiving something else, then that's when you start to have challenges. And they can be to the point we were talking before this podcast, it can be to the point when there's severe toxicity, things like death threats or things like severe significant sustained harassment. Those are real problems that some people face in gaming communities that can lead to real long-term mental health challenges associated with it. So it's not like a flippant thing. Even though the word toxicity sometimes feels like cute and neat and in a little box, but it can really have a lot of real world repercussions. But everyone comes up with their cultural norms. So it's about what are the norms that your community have set and expect or are okay with. And that's going to be different depending on which community you're in. But also, I'm still stuck on 2006 was 19 years ago. My brain is still there. Uh,
Sorry, it hit me this morning, and it also kind of dovetailed with what Klamacz was saying about being. So my mind is when I play Arma is that I'm 45 years old, and I assume that the majority of people I play with are not because they're talking about, oh, I got to go to my job at Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, and when they insult each other, they're insulting each other over like, you got those crappy shoes or whatever. Now I got like adult problems. And that makes me feel really weird that like I'm a 45-year-old dude and they naturally assume that I'm their age. And every now and then when they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm 45. They're like, holy shit. Like who let grandpa in here, and but I don't feel old, but I am. And what I wanted to tag on besides being such a long time ago is I recently ran across something players that I had to ask Evan and others what they're called, but they call them griefers. And they seem to be like people who come into a game solely to ruin the game. And
Yes.
I don't understand. That blows my mind. Can someone please educate me on what this is and what's the purpose of just coming into a game to ruin a game would be?
I mean, I think, Klamacz, do you have some examples of like being in the community? I mean, some people just want to ruin other people's good time.
I think it actually leads to some kind of unresolved curiosity. I know those kids it would be kids which are talented in some technical way, so they can break the game. They're curious. They find those ways how to break the game. We have exploits in game, and you can sometimes you can use it to gain advantage over other players. Those would be people which wants to beat others in game, like very hardcore, sweaty PvP players. Let's call them but there are also such people which we could call gankers, which will jump on the least expecting and like the most easy targets, basically, to do as much possible as damage. Uh, and griefers, maybe cheaters, those would be which find exploits to actually break the game, to make it impossible to play. But I would say they're driven, of course, it is a malicious content, but somewhere there is a curiosity of how it works. How can I unscrew it so it stops working? And maybe through that they want to prove themselves. Like I would invite such people to open the workbench and really show their skills there, which is like our software which we use for game development. And that's where this creativity can be directed. Like make mods instead of cheats or finding the how to abuse the game. Of course, there are also some people which are simply assholes. I didn't want to use that word. Thank you.
Very
I mean, that's
direct.
that's what, because that's the other thing about this is like I am always marvel at how there are a fraction of people who will show up just to ruin other people's experiences. And it makes me wonder after you get over the initial anger, it makes you wonder like, is this one of those things where negative attention is better than no attention? Or do they have a purpose that I'm not smart enough to understand? And like, oh, that's what they're doing. They're just not challenged.
I mean, it varies. Some people just think it's funny to mess up other people's experience. Some people want to test the limits of what they can do. Can I break this? Can I exploit this? Am I capable? And what Natasha was talking about earlier too, about like this is a safe space where I can explore different ways to behave and see how people react. I mean, the research that we saw recently come out of Call of Duty, which is another, like first person shooter type teamwork
Talk
building
about that.
game. But they did research looking at recidivism, and they found that when people were reported and they were told why, and they said this isn't okay, don't do this, like they actually there's a much lower rate of them still doing it. So maybe first time offenders are really just a lot of like testing the waters, pushing the boundaries. What can I do? And what will be accepted in this specific community? Where are those lines? Like, I don't know if you
Yeah,
have data around like, is it only like 3 people and it's always the same people and they just do it forever? Or are they like, a lot of first time offenders?
Well, that brings up another great point because I've always, when they have this voting thing, and they'll be like, they'll vote somebody out, and then it's always like, "Why'd you vote me?" And it'll be like, "Well, you did this," but it's always anonymous. And I thought it'd be so cool if one day you put their names of like so and so voted you out, so it's not like well, who did it? So and so did it. You don't ever know.
Actually, actually, we
Did
just
it, and they're like, "Dude,
we just added it to the game. So now when it's in the update which happened very
that is
recently.
awesome."
And yeah, we added not for everyone, but the person which initiates the voting to kick. So the one which says like, I want this guy out, all the others just accept. Just a notification when you say yes or no. it's even less like responsibility behind it. The guy which initiates that is actually visible now. But if admin, for whatever reason, in the smaller communities, they want to police, let's say, the behaviors, they have the ability to get full information. Like there are groups of people which target other players, especially from the other side, and there are multiple of them. They kind of vote kick someone by just being enough of them, and kind of grief other people out of the session this way.
Hmm. Yeah, they turn your tools against each other.
But yeah, making just this less anonymous, yes, I think that's one of the ways. Voting initially is a feature just actually to help against griefers and people which wants to break the game, because then general population had the tool to kind of police the situation, even if there is no administrator around which could do this, right? And Arma and other Bohemia games like DayZ is famous for the fact that it doesn't have any rules in game. So there is not really a strictly defined proper and improper behavior. As long as the game allows you to do it, then this is kind of fine. And maybe just because we didn't define those behaviors, communities which run the server may want to kind of police it. This, oh, you are abusing this mechanics of standing on the top of the tent, so we're gonna vote you out. I think it's still fine um, as a tool for the community. Some people may get hurt though. You know, if I'm trying to join and my way of playing is not compatible with that group, I get voted out. At least they will know by whom. Now,
I think it's very inspiring to hear those different perspectives. And I wanted to hear maybe, Rachel, what is your advice of how to treat such people, like people who have toxic behavior, like griefers and cheaters? Because I used to have very simplistic understanding of it. I was like, just ban everything. And then actually Klamacz, during one of our conversations, he opened my mind about this, because he was like, well, there are a lot of those first-time offenders, and you wouldn't punish kids for misbehaving like you want to punish those people, because then you are killing both curiosity and trust in you. And if you maybe want, if you want to much actually expand on your thought process on it, because I find it so fascinating. It's like mind blown.
yeah, well, the bad kids are still our kids, right? So if someone is part of the community, he may have a frustrations. The game is not perfect. It has some bugs. I'm sure Josh knows. Sometimes you get really emotional when you play the game. So the amount of those emotions, and sometimes some of those people are young. Maybe they don't handle it as in adult way. Even adults, through the anonymity of I'm just in virtual world, I can say things. They can express those emotions stronger. Doesn't mean that we want them completely out. It's just they're still our players. They're part of the deal, and kind of we may be able to tweak some of the game mechanics, or how we approach those problems to help the community be more positive than negative. Um, but we cannot really just remove them, like banning everyone. I think that would be too extreme.
Not every.
I don't know the methods. Like I need some hints as well.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to really think about it, because people don't necessarily know what the boundaries are. They don't necessarily know how to act. And I think if we look at the best practices across the industry, like what seems to be the most effective, one is feedback. So when people are voted out, or when people are reported, or whatever it is, telling them like what exactly they did, which I know sounds so simple, but that, a lot of times that information isn't really conveyed, or how it breaks the code of conduct. I also find a very specific, easy to read code of conduct does a lot of the legwork for you. I've seen in some games where they just say like, "Don't be rude," and it's like that's not actionable. I have no idea what that means. Tell me you can't use hate speech. Okay, that I understand. That has more guardrails. And that I kind of understand what I'm allowed and not allowed to do. If they continue to reoffend time and time again, and maybe banning Natasha, but not the first time offenders. You're right. Second time offender, you have to try, and you have to set the rules, and give them feedback about what's acceptable and what's not, just like with kids.
I was just thinking that
Just
about
like
every time I get my daughter, I get onto her, which isn't very often because she's perfect. But she's always like, "Daddy, what did I do?" And I'm like, "You know what you did," but oftentimes we can't really articulate what they did. You're like, "You're just on my nerves," and but my son who's 8, he has a more emotional like, he's more complex, so he's able to kind of like, "Okay, you told me not to do that, and I didn't do that exactly, but I kinda did that," and it's very interesting, it's like, that's the first thing pretty much everybody from very early age, they want to know, like, "What did I do? Why am I getting punished?"
Mhm.
In some
Which is
way,
smart.
uh, people which play those games, they may be young. I'm not saying that like our community is badly raised. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. That would be a bad thing to say, right?
They're a bunch of heathens.
But like there is a notion I heard here that there is some kind of epidemic of not communicating. That we replace our relations with screen time, and that happens more and more for the kids. This is actually gonna be a big problem in maybe a few years. It's not like our game really helps here, right? Because it's still a screen time, but at least it's not just doom scrolling through YouTube Shorts or other TikToks. It's interactive. So yes, you can test the waters, you can test the rules, you can try to push the boundaries, but you also are being taught about your behavior, and you get almost immediate feedback from other players around. Um, and what also Josh mentioned, like this ability for military context to be kind of vulgar and very straightforward, straight to the point. So it's more like a strict disciplining father sometimes, which some of those kids maybe are missing. I don't. This is maybe can we cut it off? Like this is too much.
Nothing is too much. Tell us, Rachel, are video games actually ruining our children?
No. Video games are not ruining our children. It's such a good headline. There's a lot of nuance in that conversation to be had. But again, generally speaking, it's more positive than negative. And you were just touching on the active versus passive screen time. Like games are a great way to connect. They're a great way to have fun. We seem to just forget that like fun is important and like games are a great way for people to just have fun and relax and be creative and learn and all of these other things. So, I mean, I would never say in a blanket statement that games are ruining our children. Do we have to have balance? Sure. Should we know what kind of games they're playing and with who? Yes. But, generally the kids are okay.
Thanks God. But what is it viewed so negatively by like popular media, I would say?
The world?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, I guess the most direct reason is generally we want an easy solution to complex problems, and as human, we like to just blame. Yeah, we like to just blame the latest thing as the source of the problem. So we saw it with rock and roll. We saw it with comic books. We saw it with movies. With television. When televisions came into the homes, I am old enough that my parents were like, "Don't sit too close," or
I
um,
still tell my daughter that about the screen. "You're gonna wreck your eyes," and she
you're gonna go cross-eyed.
"No, that's not true."
Uh, my mom was warned about Elvis's hips. Like, whatever it is in the moment is the cause of all the problems. So games are just the latest in the long line, and a new technology hasn't really taken that spot. I think we'll see it with VR, AR, when it becomes affordable and ubiquitous. That'll be like not those basic games that you played through a screen. Those are fine. Now the real problem is over here. So I mean, I think it's just an easy scapegoat. It's really frustrating, especially because I want to acknowledge the fact that from the outside looking in, I could see how originally people were like, oh, they're playing a thing with guns. That seems not good. Oh, it seems realistic. That must be bad. And I can see how people would make that connection. But now we've been studying it for 50, 60 years, and we know that human brains are really good at differentiating between what's real and what's not. We know that we're not seeing long term effects. So, like at this point, we could let it go, but we're not. So.
We are still trying to change it. We are trying to make players to actually feel the most immersed, and like we are getting pretty close to the point that you almost cannot distinguish at least the still image from a photography, right?
Right.
So eventually, the technology could be in places where mind becomes fooled. We are using different tricks even in the design, connecting sound, movement, and doing some animation tricks to make you the most immersed in that situation. So, but we do it intentionally to inform you what is happening. It's one thing which differs from virtual, simulator of running from real running is that you don't feel your body. So we also kind of want to immerse people in the game so they are more aware of what is happening with them in the game, become better in game, or it's not only the psychological effects, it actually has aspect in like
Physical.
gameplay. Yeah, they play differently when they are immersed.
Hmm. Interesting.
That's one thing that I noticed when we were playing the very first veteran charity event. I was talking to a few guys afterwards, including Steven from Stack Up, and we'd only been playing for an hour and a half, but we all commented on how we felt exhausted, like
Mm.
how it evoked an emotion that had us like linked to actually being there in combat. And so one of the guys said, like, I feel like I've been really running like 10 miles, and you're not running anywhere, but it's so I guess realistic that your body like cues the verbal cue or the cues from what real life. And like I expected, it got so real in some of the aspects that Steven, who used to be a captain, slipped back into the captain mode and was actually like he said when we first started playing, I told him, "You should be the captain because you're the captain." He's like, "No, I don't even remember how to do that." And by the end of this hour and a half gameplay, we have it recorded. Um, he is literally acting the same way he did as a captain in Iraq. And it was just this seamless transition. He's like, I guess that's why they drilled us so much on what to do, how to say this or whatever. But, all of us I was actually expecting to have like kind of messed up dreams. And I didn't. I actually slept really well, like I did in combat. And I was like, that's crazy that my brain knows it's not real, but my brain accesses parts of it that I guess make it real enough. But then it can turn it off.
Interesting.
It was kind of crazy.
Is it the
Mm.
sense
Studying
of
my brain.
immersion that kind of created that sense of togetherness for you? Or was it like, what was the most important thing that about the game that made it so real and that made the camaraderie go back? Because you were talking about the captaincy, right? And captaincy is about a lot about taking care of the people. What made him go into that feeling?
Mhm.
I think what made him go into that is that the realism of the game was such that it tapped into the military hardwired part of his brain that says, you know, if no one else is in charge and you know how to be in charge, be in charge. It's kind of like it plugged into a hardwiring. It's kind of like the military. If you look at memory or whatever, you look at all that stuff, just because you can't remember it or you're not thinking about it doesn't mean it's not there. And I think, you go through basic training, you get brainwashed. And once you leave this issue of, PTSD and whatever, it's all a bunch of different things. But I think that for me personally, the heart of it is they flip a switch when you go into the military, and they don't teach you how to flip the switch off when you leave, and so it's always there. So for me personally, it was my brain said, "I've seen this situation before. I've experienced that. I know how to act." And it just kind of clicked on the old switch, and it was just like all of a sudden without I mean, it's like the sense of community we talked about. I knew everybody was there was a veteran. I knew everybody there kind of had experienced the same thing. Suddenly we're speaking the same old language that we used to speak. We have the same guns that do the same things. And it's just like my brain was kind of just like, well, here we go. I'm ready for the ride. Are you ready? And then what was just very interesting is how it was able to shut it off afterwards.
Thank you. That's very. I'm very glad to hear that. Like that's what we kind of aim for. That's the meaning in working on entertainment, which can be used by people like you, and do
Crazy
something like
people.
that to you. Well, I guess it's a niche game, you know. Uh, e- every of those niche games communities is a bit crazy about something. We are crazy about the meal sim, right? Uh, it's not. I hope there is a lot of veterans in the community. I hope the more people can do this with themselves by playing the game. Uh, but I still predict that most of the community are people which never seen the real combat. So at least we are trying to give give respect to the reality of it. Like, do not glorify the war and headshotting people, and we don't have those jingles for when you shoot the enemy in the face. We don't have immediate points that you get because you did that. Like, the fact of the violence of the combat is not really scored. It is, but for different reasons. Like, you get like XP for being in combat after some time, but there is not this instant gratification, right? Um, and we try to make it as close to the reality as possible for also educational reasons, like for those people which play other shooters to not have a spoiled imagination of how this really works. So when a veteran like you says it clicked, I came back to my original training, this muscle memory or whatever it is started working again. That means that we are, very close to that point where we can say, okay, this is respectfully realistic.
This is amazing. This sense of coming back to something and feeling something so immersively and realistically. Uh, do you know, Rachel, like if it helps at all for people who struggle mentally to have this sense of uh, depth and connection, and how do different video games make this feeling?
It's a good question. It's not my area of expertise, but I can reference some work out of England from this wonderful researcher named Jane Gackenbeck. She did work with veterans with PTSD and had them play military simulation games. And she found that from the group who played it versus the group who didn't, the group who played it said they had more control in their dreams. They had more lucid dreams. They felt that they had a greater sense of control and could control the narrative in the dreams that they were having. And so that seems like a pretty good outcome to me. And she was very specific that it was the fact that it was a military simulation game, that was the part that was the difference.
I mean, I would really like to know, as someone who has studied this and, is very good at this, because you also work uh, with, for, I don't know, Discord. Like you're um,
I'm an advisor.
also, yeah, that's the word I'm trying to think. So I would like to know, what if you could make a game, or if you had like this magic wand that said I can make whatever I want in any game. Like, what are a couple things you would like to see in maybe games or game studios, or do you have a wish list of things that
Ooh. Well, I have a long wish list. I don't know how to pick just one. What would I like?
give us like the top 4 or 5 or something? I mean, I would, just interesting because
Yeah.
I'm not a
Would
big
love to
game.
hear it. Don't stop. Don't one more than one is totally okay.
I mean, what I would like to see, phew. I would like to see a standardization in the rules and codes of conduct. So I'd like to see kind of a foundational base level of what's accepted and what's not, just kind of generally across the board in our digital spaces. I know it can vary across community, but like, can we all just agree that maybe hate speech is not okay everywhere?
Like studio to studio.
Yeah, like just like all studios. Can we all just have that? And then can we put that like in our language, and can we like let other people report it and it'd be consistently be like, okay, we don't do that here. I would like to see some kind of agreement, across studios on some like basic kind of rules around behavior. I think that'd be great. I would like to see a greater integration of pro-social design. So the Thriving in Games group put out the Digital Thriving Playbook this year, which takes information and thought leadership from all across designers, all across the industry about things they've done in their games and how it's helped promote pro-social interactions between players. So like there's things on like kind design or transparent reporting pipelines and different things like that. And I think that if everybody kind of like looked through it and maybe just picked like one thing and tried it in their games, I think that would be a really cool thing to see. I like to see more research. Like when people say, "Oh, well, I see in my communities that it's first time offenders, and this is what reduces the recidivism," like the work that came out from Ubisoft this year. Like that is so helpful in helping the industry as a whole all kind of move forward and make these spaces better for everyone. And you asked me, and that's why I'm soapboxing, and we're gonna stop now. But those are three. Those are three.
That was only 3. You can't give us a the
No,
solid top 5.
I'd love to
Look
read
at that.
that rule book.
It's open source. Yeah, the Thriving in Games group. If you look up, what do they call it? The Digital Thriving Playbook. That's what it is. And it's ever growing and expanding, and they put new content in there all the time. But yeah, it's a really cool initiative.
Klamacz, what kind of features Reforger already provides to facilitate a sense of community and connectiveness, in your opinion?
Well, it is a sandbox, so it has a lot of different systems which interact together, and we have a bit of pressure put on teamwork and communication. For example, we are simulating the radio system, quite realistic. So you have the channels, you can actually listen to enemy communication. In the previous versions, you could even talk on enemy radio, but people kind of griefed, abused it, so we had to cut it down. We have the voice over network where you can speak with enemies and speak with anyone around. Basically, anytime you speak to the microphone, your voice is transferred just like in real life. So you have a bit more of those situations when random people start talking just because they met each other in passing by or in the base. Um, the ability to communicate is kind of important, and we didn't want to in any way limit this, that when you talk it's only your friendlies which will hear you. No, we want to also create this, that also enemies. This creates interesting gameplay. Actually makes I had situations when longer time ago, let's say around Arma 2, where we played the PvP, and I was fighting with enemies, right? But because I could also interact with them, we bonded, and eventually they invited me to their group to play with them because maybe they were challenged by me and they thought, okay. So there is a way that our communication features can create relations and interactions between people, not only on your faction. So not only when you join that team, that's the people which you interact with, but you actually can interact with anyone that you meet, even on long range, and it's very realistic. So it also teaches you something about like how to use those things in real life. But that's just like one of many systems that we have.
I think it's also really fun that the way, I guess, our main game on conflict is designed is that you often have time before a certain like combat tense situation happens. So even like, for example, within the company, when you play on public server, you can spawn, then like you get your loadout, and then you're driving somewhere, and you're often driving with somebody, and you can often notice that people start talking to each other because you literally have kind of nothing else to do, right? Because you like the only one person is the driver, maybe another person navigates, and then there are another 3 people in the car who are chatting, and it lets you to connect with people in a way because you're simply bored. I found it quite fascinating, and I actually got to know some of my colleagues this way, for example, and we joined the company.
I love how
Well,
people actually look at you when they're talking in the game, even though they can't. Every time they always look at you and you're like, why are you looking at me? But it's just natural. You just look at people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Actually, the statistics of how much people talk to each other in game, that would be interesting statistics to look at. And then also try to match it with the moment or the context in which those people are, right? And I think that's what Natasha said is very right, that most of the people talk with each other as they drive towards the objective. And also because of our game is kind of unforgiving in many ways. There is many different ways to get hurt and die in the game. The road collisions, car accidents are actually common. something like flipping UAZ and everyone falling out and dying. That's very common thing to do. Sometimes people survive and then they have to kind of talk to each other to pick each other up, and then they try to solve a problem of flipping the vehicle back, which requires certain amount of people. Those situations happen almost like organically, because we just throw people into this environment. It's challenging. It has all the tools. It has all the dangers, and we give them ability to talk to each other, figure it out. But I also think what is very important, we don't force you to talk. There are many games where communication is required. Like you have to talk, otherwise you cannot play. We we tried to design it. I'm not saying that we 100% did it because it's always a process, but we try to design it in a way that we are somewhat inclusive to people which maybe don't have a microphone or maybe don't want to speak for whatever reason. Right? And I'm not a person which goes out and talk to people. And I like the fact that I can just play the game, I can listen, I can observe, I can coordinate and cooperate even without talking with them, because maybe I don't know, maybe I just don't want to for whatever reason. Maybe I don't feel strong enough that I create this interaction, right? Uh, and then one day I will have a fight and I will have to say something to the other guy, otherwise he will get like through a grenade badly, and I will force myself to shout to him. I think this is the safety that this games provides. You can, you don't have to, and you can kind of exist in this environment without being forced into social interaction and slowly get used to the environment to the point, or start trusting people enough that you start talking to them. I see that happening to people on the servers.
Are there any features, Klamacz, that you wish would come through Make Arma Not War 2025 competitions in the modding scene that would help foster better community or would help to reduce toxicity, improve some of our current in-game features that mitigate some toxicity, like basically anything that we've talked about today?
Well, that's a very wide set of things that we could have in game to make things easier or better. I think if you're talking about community in general, any tool that allows them to organize themselves and create sessions in easy way. So if you have a bunch of friends, veterans or not, maybe people have different time zones, maybe they have their own problems, maybe they're not that communicative. The easier it is for you to organize those play sessions, maybe it is game master, maybe it's conflict, it doesn't really matter what it is, but any tool which helps those things to happen, that will kind of activate the little groups, the friends groups. Someone organizes those meal sim events, which are very interesting. They sometimes try to be very realistic, follow all the tactics and doctrines, and sometimes it's just chaos and mess and becomes deathmatch in the end. But still, like ability to create those, set them up for specific intent. For example, I don't know, structures, roles, hierarchies, groups, anything like patches, identification. Um, this would help create groups of players which basically run those sessions regularly. It makes it easier for them.
Rachel, do you have some kind of question that you would ask, like if you would be on the space of the modder or a community member, like, hey, I'm just a simple community member and I want to help, but I don't know how to. Where do I start? Where do I start my brainstorm? What is a good open question for them?
What do you want to impact? Like Klamacz would say, like, do you want to be able to find a group? Do you want to impact the ease with which you can find a community? Do you want to impact the nature of the community you're already in? Maybe it's about something specific to the communities you're already a part of. I think figuring out what your end goal is probably the best place to start.
And it's good if you're passionate about it, because that will drive you forward. Like generally, modding is a free time uh, thing, right? It's not a work. You don't
Right.
get 9 to 5. You have to kind of make yourself motivated to sit down on it and do it in your free time. So I think it's like with any the game development, it's good that if you like, if you are passionate about what you're doing and you believe in it, so find objective or find a problem you want to solve, be pick the one which is the most important for you, and then go and try to solve it. I think that's a good drive, right? Just for making this happen. Ideas are great, but like the doers are who changes the world, right?
For sure.
That's something I experienced, and I actually went to Rachel for.
Oh no.
While we're waiting for Joshua to maybe reconnect,
Well, was that me? Like everything just went this.
You.
It was stupid in it. But we had partnered with the VFW um, through this initiative, and I've kept feeling like we had a couple veteran play sessions, and I felt like there was something I had to do. Like something that would equal success. Like if I can get this or whatever, maybe it was I don't know what it was, and after we had a couple, I was like, I feel like they're looking to me for a solution, but I don't have it. I don't even know what it is. And I asked Rachel, and she said, after conversation, she said, in creating the space where everybody can go and experience the veterans, et cetera, can experience this play, like you've more or less created the thing, right? And now it's how you cultivate and grow it or whatever else is going to happen. But I kind of looked at it in this A to B to C, this linear way, and like there's going to be a finish line, but there's really not. And it challenged me to think sometimes just in creating the space and it not being finished, I guess, is what you want.
and maybe another little like addition as I was hearing all of you speak. I think a simplest way to start for anybody who wants to help a community is to ask community what they need. Because if it's about them, don't do it without them, right? Like every time
That's right there down too. That's
we're gonna have some quotes today on the t-shirts after this talk.
yeah, yeah. I could make some bumper stickers this week.
So I think it helps us also a lot of work, because when we think of what to prioritize, right? Like if we also here in the community, they give us feedback what needs to be improved, etc. And we do that internally as well within our team. Hey guys, what are our problems? What do we want solved? And if you go to the community and you ask them like, hey, what I want to help, I want to do something that will help our community thrive, and it might end up being, as Klamacz said, not a feature in game. It could be a website for, I don't know, signing up to to an event so that you can pre-select like certain rule groups and sort of roles, etc. And you know that the scheduling will work out for most of the players. Because this kind of organizational things can also help the communities a lot. And a lot of it is might be invisible work, but it can make or break the community. So all hail the organizers, the Discord owners, the admins. Maybe sending a box of chocolates to your local person who organizes every session for your mission team is also something to do, and it might be as good as modding sometimes.
I think also the big part of this are the people which create the scenario. So yes, we have all the different community members, right? We have people which are creating scenarios for the groups to play, and it's a hard work. It may be interesting and easy in the first few times, but eventually you run out of creative ideas. And also, the more ambitious you are, the more you are hitting the wall of difficulty. How do I create it inside the game with the tools that you have given, right? So, if you really want to create something meaningful for people like you, Josh, like veterans who maybe I don't know if they want to really recreate the situations they had, or they just want to get immersed to the point that the training clicks back and they feel for a moment this familiarity. But for people which wants to create those scenarios, they need tools as well. A set of frameworks and tools that they can create those ambitious ideas. I'm sure that our platform is not even half done like the previous Armas. I'm sure there is still enough space there to create elements from which creative people, smart people can build some more interesting, more ambitious, even more realistic, maybe historically accurate situations. Um, like this community is built on the work of the previous ones. Someone creates a mod, someone else learns from it or uses it as a dependency to create their own. Someone creates a mission on it, someone runs a server with it, someone leads the team through it, someone writes the report after it. Like we all kind of build on the little blocks which were made by the previous guy. So you may as well you should figure it out because that's the creative. Like you have to have a bit of research and idea and passion, but figure out your little box in it and give it to people, and you will be loved, at least in that community.
I think that is the perfect way to wrap this up. Give it to them and you will be loved. Because wow, I thought this was gonna be a great episode and I was not wrong. I learned just so much that I still don't know. Huh?
I thought you were gonna say I thought it was gonna be great and it wasn't. And I was like, what?
No, it's my mind has been blown so many times by just very simple things, but things that I would have never even imagined. I don't know. So I just appreciate this and the time. And Natasha, do you have any other great questions? You've had some good ones.
Always, but I think we've had a wonderful time, and I'm really looking forward what the "Don't Fight Alone" category in Make Arma Not War is gonna bring. I really love all the ideas and all the inspiration that you guys have given to our community today. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, Rachel. Thank you for bringing the insights from scientific community and helping us to think about it from a broader perspective, actually, because we often feel sometimes, stuck in our own little bubble. We just make armor, we love armor, but expanding and thinking about it in a broader context was very helpful for us. And thank you for all the different perspectives. Thank you, Joshua, for bringing your personal perspective of a veteran. And thank you, Klamacz, for being Mr. Armor, as usual.
And one thing, Rachel has a bunch of really awesome just articles, all types of things to use on her website. It's rachelkowert.com, right? Or like it?
It's rcowert.com, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Close. You would find it if you put my name in there.
Yeah, but I feel bad because I misspelled. Well, it wasn't me who misspelled your name so many times in that one article, but it was done. And now I feel like your name is jinxed.
Yeah.
But
Thank you. I appreciate the plug. Yeah, if you will.
yeah, drop by and check it out.
Yep, there's a bunch of stuff there. And thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to see what comes together in this competition.
Thank you. And for that, we're going to wrap up another episode of Make Arma Not War 2025 podcast. See you all on Everon.